What's up, everybody? It's your favorite dads, Cole and Jordan with 100 Talk. And we should probably call this 100-minute talk tonight because there is so much to talk about, and at the same time, there is so little to talk about.
It's a conundrum.
It is one of those things right now where we're just feeling at a total loss, if we're being honest.
Yeah, so many questions to ask, so few answers to give. And it kind of feels like we're just doing the same show we've done before, which is it's sad here. We feel sad. And boy, this didn't go well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like this show is largely the same show we've done for the past couple of weeks. I mean, minus we don't have Jackson tonight. Sorry, spoilers.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, this is going to be kind of a rough conversation, especially in light of the games that we saw this past weekend.
Yes.
So, it ain't easy. So let's give our overall disclaimer really quick. Like, why not do this? Okay, so everyone, if you don't know us already, we are...
Welcome.
Yeah, first of all, welcome. We are Cole and Jordan, and this is like not the insane, like, we know everything about League of Legends. We're going to give you every single insight into what's happening. What we are instead are a couple of guys who've watched every single 100 Thieves LCS game that has ever been played. And we are very passionate about this team, and we love this team. And we would like to talk with you about it and about what the heck is going wrong as a sort of therapy session, I guess you could call it.
I had a flashback earlier of last season. I was like, Cole, I guess we got to do more shows, man. We're going to Worlds.
Yeah.
And now it's like, and the season's over.
That hasn't worked out.
No.
The second appendage to this disclaimer that I was just giving is, gotta say it, we really like these guys. Like, we like these players. We like the coach. We like the 100 Thieves staff, organization.
They're a likable bunch.
They're a bunch of likable guys. And so we're about to launch into a lot of criticisms about probably all of them. So we should just couch that, as always, with, man, we like these guys and we want them to succeed. Yeah. That being said, there's a lot to talk about. So
I think that being said, these guys aren't going to succeed. Like, I think we're at the point now where we can say the data's in. This ain't it. Yeah. This is not the team. This is not it's not what we need. It's not going to take us where we want to go. Which is at least the playoffs. We're not even going to get there.
Yeah, like now, if I'm not mistaken, we are officially out of the playoffs. Like, there is no way, right?
Everybody's been talking about it. I mean, I look at the math on it, and I think it looked like there is, but maybe it's a tiebreaker thing. Maybe
I was going to say, I think they already own tiebreakers over us. So
probably
I don't think there's any way forward for this team, which is probably why we saw that tweet from Probably come out, essentially forfeiting the split.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a unusual
as well as
situation.
The 100 Thieves main account, I think, and they're the one that I think they said we're out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So either they're just
so
writing
we're
into that story
out
early, or
Our amazing Twitch chat is now confirming broadcast said they're out as well. So mathematically, this is it for this iteration of 100 Thieves. Well,
it gives kind of a degree of closure. We can just talk about this week exactly as it is.
Yeah, though that's kind of interesting because we do have another week to get through, which means an opportunity or just a go through the motions thing. Depends on what the team decides to do. But let's back up a little bit. Usually we don't do this, and we kind of save talking about the heist for if we have time, because we like to focus on the games and what's going on with the team right now. But I think it's appropriate, given the tone and atmosphere of what everybody's feeling, to talk about the heist first.
Should we talk about the academy team really quick before we even get into that?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Launch into
they're going to playoffs.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
There's something to cheer about right there.
Yeah, that's great.
The good old academy
fantastic.
Boys.
Way to go, academy team. Going to Academy Worlds. Feels great.
Four rookies.
Hard-fought matches
making
to get there. They earned it. So we still have some Thieves to watch in the Rift. We'll, I guess, watch next week LCS. But let's just get that in there real quick, and then we can jump straight into the LCS.
Yeah. So
sad times.
Congratulations to the Academy Boys. We were able to actually stream or cast another game this week, which was a lot of fun. And we're going to. We honestly don't know what's going to happen with playoffs. So I know a portion of playoffs are at least done in the studio. So I assume that you may have heard all from us this split, but
we're not planning on anything more, at least.
Yeah.
But we're always ready.
Okay, so that being said, going back to the heist, this episode this past week was very unusual in my opinion because of the tone and you're basically playing like slow, sad post-rock music for the whole episode, and it's
kind of
just
like the intro we did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we were, REM's a little bit different, but sure. It was sad. It was really sad. And those are my first two notes about the heist. One, it was sad. Two, it was really sad.
Yeah. That's what I took from it.
I will say this. I really enjoyed seeing Nadeshot give Max the speech ahead of Max's Sligo's speech headed into subbing in for Huhi for the first time and playing against Bjergsen, and he gave him a really nice speech, a little bit of a, hey, I've been in your shoes before, but also a little bit of a, we're not counting on you to save this split or anything, kind of relieve that pressure from him, which was a really nice gesture from the CEO of the org, to sit down and have that conversation with him. So that, I thought that was a good moment and really nice. And then everything else was just, like we said, so sad. Seeing the looks on these players' faces as they lose these games, and you can see it on their faces. They don't have the answers either, right?
Yeah, and I think the things I texted you after I watched it was like, wow, I had forgotten just how sad that TSM game was. Like, that game was devastating, and as a person who gets to go about my life after that game ends, like. I kind of moved on from it, I think, a little bit. But you got to imagine if you're playing in that game and you come that close to winning and you give it back, like, oh, I think that one stays with you a little bit. You know?
And a real.
It's hard to move on from that. It's really hard. I think you got to imagine.
Sure, a real pivot point for the season. That's you're fighting for your life at that point, basically, and for it not to go that way after the lead opened up is just really sad. Yeah. Another note, and this is something that we both saw and agreed on, is that they showed some of the comms. They showed a good portion of comms actually during this episode of the heist, and they were chaotic to say the least.
Yeah,
it seemed pretty undecisive. It seemed like no one's agreeing. Some of the calls being made were just flat out wrong, and man, that was like the season in a microcosm or whatever, like that's kind of just what it's been so far.
Season in a soundbite, just a lot of people saying a lot of things and not really going in the same direction. And I think one of the things that you and I have been noticing as we watch games lately is it just feels like we're all spread out kind of around the skirts, like around the outside of a fight. And that's exactly what the team, like the comms sounded like. It's like, there's nobody grouping the people together. I mean, we heard a 10, 15-second snippet. Yeah. But it just, I could see how that happens, right? When that's kind of the orchestration that's going on there. So it makes sense. It's kind of what I expected here. I think Anda was saying a lot in that one team fight that we saw the comms for. Mm-hmm. And I think he's had some suspect engages lately and stuff like that. So, it's hard to say, what to do differently. And I kind of feel like that's the point we're at, where it's like, I don't even know for this squad what you'd say to try differently at this point,
Yeah, that's one of the things that is especially challenging when you have something that on paper looks so good and then in practice the wheels fall off. What do you do? Like, which problem do you address first? And there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So
our chat is calling out that Anda's called off the Baron, which was the big.
Yeah.
That was like moment. The turning point in the game that would have been our turning point, and that's I think that's the play to everyone watching. Like, why did we leave that? So it was interesting to see the behind the scenes of that, and for it to be Anda saying we gotta stop, and then Aphro saying, yeah, okay, I guess that's fine.
Yep. So with that kind of vibe and tone in the heist, that for those games, the games that were already passed, certainly, going into the following weekend, you had to assume that it was the same kind of feeling. I mean, a lot of that's the way they tell a story, but I think the heist reflects the mood of the team in general, and going into this weekend's games, you have to say, looking at the play, that it really, really seemed like this team has rolled over.
Yeah.
It's hard to dispute that notion. You want to talk a little bit about FlyQuest, and then we'll do Echo Fox, and then we'll just move on to a lot of general stuff. Is that how you want to roll for?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, cool. The cheese death, the Aphro level 1 death. How did you, what was your takeaway on this? We're of course talking about, over on, it was the bot side bush, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He checked it and checked into 2.
That like, what a tilter. I swear the same play happened to me recently where I was standing in a bush. I stepped out for a second. I stepped back in and there were 2 people in there. I was like, how is this possible? What happened here? But that's kind of what happened. He was in it. He had checked it and he left, took a few steps down the river and came back. And there you go. That is a bot lane in your face. So,
and watching the games, like I felt personally like I'm grasping for any anchor of hope that I can find, and to have that at the very beginning of this, man.
Yeah, like I mean, going into this weekend, we're still. It was a long shot, right? Like things had to happen, favorable results elsewhere, all this stuff, but we weren't out. So to start the game that you need to win against a team that is hot and that is looking really good, and that also took down TL today, by the way. So big weekend for FlyQuest. That is just the worst possible way to start. I mean, it's not the worst possible way because that was Fox. That was Echo Fox.
It probably was.
That was an 0-2, which is, mathematically worse than an 0-1.
Yeah.
But like before the wave even gets there, to have a death that's a demoralizer. And it's like season in a nutshell. Again, how many times have we had these weird, isolated, one-off, like demoralizing deaths that shouldn't happen?
And more often than not on Aphro.
Yeah.
It's rough, isn't it?
It's one of those where it's like it's unlucky. There's a lot of luck involved in this. That he was a little careless. He wasn't like maximally careless, but you just kind of scratch your head and it's like, why aren't other people as unlucky as him? And I think that's where it's like, I think there's more personal. It's his own personal play.
Yeah,
it's more that than luck, right? He's not just truly the most unlucky dude in the LCS.
Right, 1 or 2 times is coincidence, and then 5 or 6 times is a habit.
And like once a game, it feels like we're averaging like once a game. Like it was. Remember, there was that week where it was he died in lane, TP'd back in, and pre-forward, got killed again. Like those kinds of plays are just. That's what I am remembering from this split from Aphro, which is so far from what I think any of us expected. So it's weird to have that. Like the other play, like last week, like caught in a bush, and we saw that in the heist.
Yeah, the LeBlanc. Yep.
There's just a lot of those kind of plays.
Yeah, it has me thinking about that meme I posted to the subreddit of the Wolverine looking at the picture in bed and having the spring split or 2018 MVP at Aphro.
Yes.
Thing.
100%.
Yeah. You noted the final kill score in this game.
Yeah.
We had 4 kills and 8 deaths. Is that right? Because I don't actually have that score written down.
Yep. We had 4. They had 8.
So it was just a lot of inaction, maybe, because obviously in NA we're used to seeing more kills than that. And something that I was thinking about was in this game, specifically FlyQuest, was someday, because I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think someday is the one player on our team that's blameless. I think he's the one that really has been consistent, has made a difference, and has pulled his weight. And he's responsible for pulling a lot of weight.
Right. I think the one criticism you could levy at someday is to say he didn't 1v9 hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. But so in this game, so I'm saying that again as a disclaimer, but in this game, he was on the Vladimir, and he actually kind of smashed in lane.
Yeah, surprisingly.
He was really taking it to Viper in lane, which looked amazing. But I'm telling you, I am not sure I saw him try and make a play and get a kill. I'm
like
not sure I saw that. Definitely not in lane. Even the rest of the game, it just seemed like, Vladimir is one of those champions where if you get a lead, you can really, really mess things up for people.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw a little bit of that today against us in the Echo Fox game.
Yeah.
So, this is a powerful champion, even though I think maybe even was nerfed recently, but still, is a game changer if you have that thing online.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen for Someday.
Yeah.
I came away thinking, did he even try and make plays? So I think that is kind of symbolic of how these last few weeks have gone, where we're just kind of zombies out there on the Rift.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like we're not really playing. Like these two games this weekend were just really hard to watch. Like we were not a fun team to watch this weekend. Felt like we were just kind of phoned it in, which is such a strange weekend to do that on. My take on Someday is I think, you scale to the point where you can wreck a team fight. You just show up and turn into a blob and blast AoE damage everybody and like really get into the back line and blow people up. And I just think that there was no team fight where he could have even thought about doing that. So I do think that there's a degree of it with specifically Vlad, where if your team fights are not shaping up, you're going to be doing a lot of watching and a lot of just like, farming and queues from distance. So I agree. It didn't feel like he tried to make a play. I don't think anybody tried to make a play really. There's maybe one or two Saligo engages, which I thought were pretty good.
They were okay.
Yeah, they were okay.
Nothing world shattering. There was actually a listener question that came in through Twitter that I think is relevant for this discussion. At Dennis_CLE said, why do you think 100 Thieves constantly plays timid and seemingly cowardly at times?
That's a pretty
it's a deep one.
It's a deep one. It's like, man, those are two adjectives you do not want your team to be kind of recognized for. But I think the guy's right. I think Dennis has it. So why? I don't know. It's so weird.
Do you think we have trust issues? Because, obviously you don't go in unless you feel like you're going to have backup there. Has trust eroded on the team? Because it seems like they enjoy each other's company when you catch them either on stream or, just glimpses in the Heist of better times, earlier in the split where it wasn't so focused on everything that's happening in studio and during scrims or whatever. It seemed like they get along as people.
But that's the impression I get too.
If maybe there's some PTSD after how this split is gone, or maybe it's simply, there's not trust there that, your teammates have your back. I'm not sure.
So I think it's an interesting question because there are two ways you can lose a game, right? You can lose it cowardly and you can lose it by being like way over aggressive. You can make reckless plays and you can be kind of stupid when it comes to picking your fights. I think we've always been a team that is very deliberate, and I think that served us well. It took us to Worlds, and we were able to capitalize on people's mistakes, and we set up good plays. And there's a while there where it was really tough to get a neutral objective off us. A year ago. Yeah. So my sense of it is when things changed, I think there's a whole bunch of different things that changed. The most obvious one being the roster, but I think the game has changed pretty considerably since then. I think the LCS has changed a lot since year one of franchise. I think when those things changed, our deliberate and intentional nature has turned into timid and cowardly. And I think without the decisiveness, like that's what, in my mind, without decisiveness, being deliberate can turn into being timid. And there's just too many times where there's been a key moment that we haven't done enough with. And I think there's a cumulative effect there, right? It's like by the end of the season, that's our play style is we don't engage, we don't fight, we don't make people win. We kind of just roll over and we give up the inhib and we give up the Nexus turrets, and then the super minis are here, and and they're going to win the game. Like, that's what I think.
Yeah, and there's no real plan. We've talked about this before, and again, this is a question coming in Twitch chat from Ravens Nation 19. Does this go to show how valuable Ryu was to the team last year? And I think that's what speaks to Ryu, just by deduction, really. That now it doesn't seem like there's any active plan on setting up plays, whereas last year there definitely was. And Ryu is the thing that's missing, in my opinion. And that's something that, we've talked about. I mean, we even brought that up last year during Summer Split when Ryu was under a little bit of heat. We defended him, and then we've talked about that a few times this split too, that, Ryu is probably the impact that he had on the game was really not understood, I think, until we saw how this season has played out.
I agree. And I think I would argue that I'm not sure anybody understood it, just how important he was in this. Like, it would have been nice if we had a chance to, and you can't really do this, but could we have scrimmed without Ryu and just, had a look at how that impacted the team overall, right? Like, before we made this change, before we signed on to do this and make all these changes, could we have gone and said, let's just play with some different mids. If we're going to make a change at mid, let's see what that means for us. And then maybe what you realize is, like, how come nobody's doing anything? Like, why aren't we being, why aren't we going for plays here? This is so weird.
Yeah.
Because I just don't. I would, and the reason I think maybe no one realized the full extent to which Ryu contributed is because we went ahead and made the change, right? And if anybody knew that this is what was going to happen when Ryu got popped out, then there's no way you make that change. There's no way.
Yep. So chalk it up to just not,
it's
not really
so
anticipating what was going to be the difference.
And and even if you knew he was vocal, not thinking that, well, taking that one piece out is going to, like, who would have guessed he was the keystone, right?
Yeah. Ravens Nation 19 follows that up with problem was that we couldn't have got Bang because of the import slots. We needed an NA mid. Yes, obviously. The import situation played a big role into that, and I think it was just an opportune time for Ryu to kind of step back since he'd had a long career and make that transition. So, yes, that certainly has something to do with it. But regardless, I mean, now here we are, right? We haven't,
and I think it's the math, right? Like, do you trade the glue of the team for what could be an all-star bot laner?
Yeah, I've said this before. It's like, I find it impossible to fault that move on paper.
Oh no, I don't fault it. I'm just saying, like, in retrospect, that's one that hasn't played out, obviously. And I'm not claiming credit for saying, like, well, they should have thought about it, because I didn't think about it either. Like, there's no way. Yeah. And it is so enticing to say, like, we could get, clearly last season bot lane was our struggle point. And so on paper, it's a no-brainer. It's like, oh man, everybody talked about it. Maybe it's a side grade going from Ryu to Huhi, So if you're just doing the math, then I'd say clearly if that's the only other change, then it was a huge step back. Yeah. Unless there's, again, there could be another million things, but.
Yep. Well, let's talk about Echo Fox, because Echo Fox game kind of seemed like more of the same and maybe a more exaggerated version of this lack of action. We got off to a really unfortunate start with the 0-2 kill trade that we took in top lane.
Trade.
Which, if memory serves right, I think Enda kind of just got caught out after a jungle invade. He was trying to recall in a bush. And kind of fell asleep on it. Might have been able to react sooner. I'm not sure. But he certainly got discovered. And then someday kind of half-heartedly came down to try and help him out. I think it was a little slow. And
it was one of those where, I watched they kind of did some analysis on it after the game. And what they said is, the people who watched, I think it was High and maybe Crumb said, I don't really fault Anda for this, because what you have is just this Rush took a super weird path to find him out, basically. So it's one of those where I think they were saying you take the risk if you're going to invade, thinking that most of the time that people are not going to be as thorough as Rush was to actually find you. So he got caught. Right, he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and that's what happens.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit like an odd recall spot, because why don't you just go over and hit the like flower and go, back over across in your jungle? Maybe he saw something on the map that we didn't see. But again, it was just the same story where we get a weird start that just kind of sucked all the life out of the game, just like FlyQuest. You mentioned kill score again in this, with 100 Thieves finishing with 3 kills, but 2 of them coming at the fountain. So really is like 1 kill during the game that we were able to secure.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fillet that knocked them toward the fountain, but still, it's like, I'm not sure how much I want to give you credit for those.
Yeah.
It felt a lot more like a game that we ended with 1 kill.
Yeah,
3.
it did. And I think that speaks again towards the lack of action. And we got Aphro on a playmaking support. Aphro on Thresh, that should be something that makes a difference as long as it's played well. I'm telling you right now, like, I could be wrong, okay? But
tell us though.
I was watching, and at some point I started realizing I'm not seeing like any hooks from Aphro. And I'm pretty sure through like the first 20 minutes that he threw 1 hook out. And it didn't land. So
could have been more off camera. Right?
Someone check me, maybe it was off camera or whatever, but we just did not see any hooks. And like, you've got him on Thresh for a reason, right? And he's got to be making those plays. He's got to be landing those things. Yeah. I watched Lehens play this week in a loss against the Freak of Freaks. This is Griffin, for any of you who don't watch LCK. This is on Griffin. Lehens played Thresh in game 3 when they lost to Freak of Freaks, and this dude was hooking everyone. I think he finished with something like 19 assists in that game. His Thresh was an absolute difference maker. Even though they ended up losing the game, the entire game he was just landing hooks, putting people in a box, getting the flays off at the right time. Yeah. And it's just a complete 180 from what we saw out of Aphro today. So that is a big, big, big problem in my mind. Yeah. How are you feeling about him right now?
About Aphro?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I mean, yeah, we spent a lot of time focusing on these weird plays and just like getting caught out. But yeah, we're not seeing plays come out from him either. Like, he's not playmaking. And I think when you play Thresh, even if you're not engaging and acting on the hooks, like, you got to at least get the hooks, right? You got to at least hit them.
The threat has to be there.
The threat has to be there. And I remember last season when he played Thresh, like, he gave an interview afterwards. He's like, "Ooh, just love that Thresh. The sound of the hook hitting, like, so sweet." He was hooking over walls. He was like jumping out of bushes and stuff. And it's like, I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of it, man. It's
yeah,
it's very different. It's very different, even from last season. Like, I would love to do a side-by-side montage of the Thresh play that we've seen just in this game versus like one of his Thresh plays from last year.
Yeah,
I'm guessing you would look at it and say it's 2 different players for sure.
Right, turn the nameplates off. You don't know the difference. There's a little bit of back and forth debate in our Twitch chat about Aphro and Bang. The Bonzi says that he feels like the bot lane issue is that even when Aphro is on a playmaker, it doesn't matter if Bang is saying we can't fight. I don't think it's on Aphro. I think it's Bang not wanting to fight. And there may be some truth to that.
Yeah. It entirely could be.
Yeah, without knowing the comms, it's hard to say, but I guess I'm a little more not eager. Eager is the wrong word, but I will sooner point the finger at Aphro based on the other things that I've seen from him, like getting caught out quite often.
Yeah.
And just
like
kind of some lackadaisical play,
Yeah. Even if so. Little personal anecdote here. I've been playing some Thresh next to you lately.
That's right, yeah.
And you know me. And if I land a hook, I'm there. I'm all in.
Yes,
it doesn't matter.
You are, no matter the situation.
So I got some work to do before I get there. But I think there's part of it where I think for your lane mate to say, don't fight now. Like, I feel like there's a difference between don't all in this and like don't land any Qs. at least serve Bang up the opportunity to have a fight, right? Like get him a good look and then let him say like, not right this, not this one. Because I think otherwise it's just like, it makes it hard for me to say that, well, Bang is trying to make the plays, or Aphro's trying to make the plays, but the damage isn't following, right? I think all we see is just that, like, hard to say that there are plays that could be happening and that Bang is just saying no on, unless he's truly saying, like, stay so far back, lantern me, max distance every time. I want to get that lantern, you know? It could be. I don't know.
Yeah. And so this is kind of leading me into something where, like, I don't know. I said earlier, I think Someday's the only blameless player, and that may surprise some people who are still defending Bang a whole lot, but I think Bang has been just not that good, man. Like, I totally get that he's not known for being like a lane dominant person. He's known for his late game team fighting or whatever. But we've just so rarely seen the pop off. Like one or two times we've seen it. And the rest has just kind of been like waiting for something to happen that may or may not happen. And on Twitter, one of the takes that was sent in, and I'm looking for it right now, is Wild Shot. So at Brandon_Boren, this is Wild Shot for those of you who hang out in our Twitch chat a lot. He says, I don't know if I've seen Bang and Aphro win a single lane all year. And then the extra part of that was, that's an import slot.
Yeah, right. I mean, I messaged you in a FlyQuest game and I said, our bot lane is getting worked by Wild Turtle and JJ right now. And like, look, that team is good. I'm not trying to disrespect them, but that is not a matchup that you would look at when the season started and say, you know, I think they're going to do pretty well. You got to watch out for Double Lift and Core JJ and Wild Turtle and JJ.
Yeah.
Like those are the two that I think we're going to get absolutely, stretched on. But they were working us. It was like 2 turret plates left, I think, at 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What?
It was really bad.
That's not just like losing lane. That's getting smashed. We were getting smashed. We were legit getting smashed.
And I think we've played Ash Tom Kench like not a few times. Like I think we've played it like maybe 4 times, 5 times. Like,
yeah.
And just didn't really get results from there. I mean, we might have been marginally up in CS at some point, but it really doesn't seem like we ever get anything that, really happens for the bot lane. And then the other part of that is, and this was said, I think pretty well for Plebeian 06 in Twitch chat, who said, I'm going to be completely honest here. I think Bang might be part of our problem. He's so passive and it just doesn't make any sense because he never manages to do anything from even or behind. I get that he'd be used to having people who can win for him on the top side, but right now we need him to actually win lane and carry, and we're just not seeing it. And that's
Someday is still winning top side.
Someday is winning top side a lot of the times. And then it's like, well, we haven't seen him win from from behind or from even. That's right. So like if the whole point is wait until he pops off, well, like they've bought him the time and it just hasn't happened. So
one small defense there. It's super, like there was a clip they showed the other day. I think it was us. Could have been someone else, honestly. But like Ezreal, strong champion. If you're behind playing Ezreal, you might as well be shooting Nerf darts. Like your Qs do nothing. You've got to be fed to at least the point that you can wreck people. And I think sometimes the problem with Bang is we just are outscaled all over the map. So in a team fight, he is just shooting darts at a brick wall.
Yeah. And when we had Jackson on to talk about everything that was going on with the team, he actually said that like you're right, because we've seen Bang a lot on late game scaling champions, right? Mm-hmm. And so the thought is, well, like let's try him on something that's supposed to win lane early or something. And I just want to go back to what Jackson said, is that they think through all of these scenarios and they scrim them and they see how it plays out. If you're not seeing it on stage, it's because it hasn't worked for them. So There's something to be said then. But having said that, I do want to say, like, I don't want it to come off of like I'm completely just taking a big dump on Bang right here, because like I don't think he's been really bad or anything. I don't think he's our problem, and I'm not calling for him to be switched out or replaced or anything right now. But I do think that
Not time for Prismal.
Yeah, I don't think it's time for Prismal, but I do think that we have not gotten out of him what we were expecting, and probably not even close. So I do think he shoulders blame for what's been happening, at least to some degree. So someday, dude, you're good, but everybody else has a part in this, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then I mean, maybe it's time to kind of move on to, unless there's anything else you want to hit from Fox.
Yeah.
Move on.
No, I do.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make one more point, is that, this weekend we saw Someday play Vladimir, and then we saw him play Rise. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had one of the Rise game from him earlier this split. These types of champions just don't seem to work for him. And I think we tried to do something tricky today, and we kind of ended up flexing some stuff and, trying to get creative with the draft or whatever. But I'm telling you, it just doesn't seem to work when you have him on these mage champs. It's not that he can't lane, because he obviously does fine in lane, but he can't fight really as well with them.
It could be a slight tweak of that, right? Which is our team doesn't know how to fight as well with an additional mage in the mix. I mean, we won half of our games this season, I think, with him on Urgot. Is that right?
Yes.
And Urgot is not a champ who's getting much play. So part of this could be the meta's changed. And that's not why we lost. That's not why we're in 10th place. I'm not blaming it on the meta, but it could be that, I think some days, many of his highlight plays are on, he had that disgusting Urgot 2v1 earlier. And so I think there's definitely something to the meta changing throughout this season, and just the way that that's changed his champ priority for sure.
Yeah.
Because I agree. It's, he's not been as much of a difference maker on those champions as he was on somebody like an Urgot.
Mm-hmm. Well, that being said, let's cover some general questions and topics, and we'll tackle some listener takes and questions as we move throughout this.
Yeah.
First off, we made this point, we're out of playoffs, and right now we're in last place. Your note on this is, whether we end there or not, we're the worst team in the league. You wanna expound on that a little bit more?
Yes, I think for me, there's still, the red rivalry lives, boys. There's still a chance that we could beat Clutch to 9th.
Yeah, Zach from League Leaders podcast was in the chat earlier. So if you're listening to this,
just find solace in the fact that you guys are a game ahead of us right now.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I think the way that we have been losing games, and this has been something people have been talking about since week 1, the way that we've been losing games is so demoralizing for me. I think that even if somehow we end up finishing with a better record, even than Clutch, that's not, Clutch's got their own problems. Don't get me wrong, but that's not a team that I'm going to say we're definitely better than. And I would go so far as to say that I think our team I think we're the worst team in the league. When I watch them play, I just I'm sure people go into the weeks against us and they're like, sweet, an easy win, great, and that hurts. But I think that's where we are, and I think it's because we're playing the worst league of anybody in the LCS right now.
Yeah. Well, Prawley said, in a tweet, which we may have already mentioned this, but he said, "This split is on me. I had a good roster to work with and couldn't create a winning team. Sorry to all the fans for letting you guys down. We'll start preparing for summer." This is probably, I think, politically taking the blame for what's going on. Which I think is the right move for him. He's the coach. He can deflect some of the toxicity and criticism away from the players when he does that. That being said, how much do you think this is on Prawley right now? This is what we've had, maybe a Prawley meter throughout the whole split, where it's been all right, how much are we looking to Prawley for responsibility here? Where's that meter at for you right now?
So my Prawley meter has been tipping more toward his most recent tweet, which is maybe this is on him. And I remember earlier, probably week 6, I had a moment. I think it was putting gas in my car, and I was just sitting there. I think this is Prolly's fault. And then
as you screwed the cat back on.
Yeah, I talked myself out of it, and I, I was like, no, because at the time what I was thinking was, this doesn't make sense. There's way too much skill and talent on this team. He said I had a good roster to work with for this to be what's happening. Like, I just couldn't get it at that time. And, a bunch of other stuff happened, came up and changed my mind a little bit. But I think for me right now, the thing that is the most alarming about Prolly's role in this is that we haven't gotten any better. Like, we are not better in any measurable category from week 5. And so for me, it's like, that's a lot of time. We've invested a lot of time into trying to figure this out, and we're no better. And it's not even just like everybody else is getting better and we're just keeping, we're right there with them. We're falling a little bit behind. It's like we are exactly flatlined and everyone else is getting better. So that's what concerns me, is that I don't know what reverses that trend.
Yeah.
And I think Prolly is the only one who can do that.
You may even be able to make the argument that we're getting worse, right? Because let's see, I'm looking at our match history. We've won 1 of the last 9.
Yeah.
And
who's that against? Clutch?
Yeah, it was.
With a miracle, like fluky win.
Yeah. So
that's crazy, dude.
So there's some merit to that argument, that we are not improving. I wanted to read this take from ACOS in Twitch chat. So Akos, however you say it, I'm sorry. Also a new sub, so thank you very much. He said, for what it's worth, the sheer amount of potential this roster had is mind-boggling. I think the potential is still there. And in parentheses, someday Enda, Huhi, Aframu, Bang. These were not unproven players. I'd like to see Kelsey or another coach take a shot at nurturing the team. That's an interesting take. He said earlier, I don't want the roster to be blown up. I think there are other options that don't include trading players. Yeah. Man, I think it's a mix though. Like I've always brought this up, that who, if it's not Prolly, then who? Kelsey, I think eventually should, get a shot at an LCS coaching position, but she's, she probably needs more time to cook, doing academy, and she's fantastic. Like, but who else is out there? Like, who are our options?
I think I don't know of any. And part of that is just I'm not that familiar with coaches and like who's floating around out there and who might be dropping a coach that we could grab. And I'm just not that closely tied into that. But here's a thought with Kelsey. So it's free time, right? There's nothing that we win by winning. There's nothing we stand to gain by winning. I think it's I'm comfortable saying that. So maybe what we do is we start having her coach this team. This is just an idea time. Having her start coaching this team, maybe even next week. Like, because I think probably said it in his tweet. Like, he's preparing for summer. So maybe Kelsey's shot is week 10 or week 9. And maybe that's where she gets to start going with it. And I think you only do that if you still believe in this roster and you think that a changing coach can have a meaningful and significant change in the performance of the roster. I don't believe that. So I think probably what I think would happen there is that Kelsey would have time with this roster to just keep status quo. Like, I just don't see this roster working together. But I think it would be interesting. And then I think after week 9, I think you could even have her start leading the team in scrims, right? And just see if you get anything different out of it. And there's going to be plenty of time to scrim. So maybe that's my thought.
I disagree with this. I mean, again, nothing against Kelsey. I actually really like her, but I just don't think that's how you go about solving this problem. I think you move around the player pieces that you have first. If you're you're staying with Prolly. That's the foundation of your. Yeah, I think I'm staying with Prolly. I mean, like, first of all, I don't know who to replace him with. Someone said St. Vicious in the chat. There's other reasons why St. Vicious doesn't have a job right now. True. I think, I think like right now you have to make a move at a time and see how it affects the team. And I think you start that with your player resources, because it's much easier to switch a player in and out than it is to change the entire philosophy that you've built with your team and your staff, and that comes from the head coach. So I just think that is too drastic of a change to make so far. So in priority order, move the players first and see what's going to happen.
Well, we've done one player move, and I would argue that hasn't made a meaningful change for us.
Actually, I agree, and there's another take somewhere here at QB Class, that's KLASS on Twitch or on Twitter, excuse me. Said Saligo seems very promising, but also solves none of 100T's primary issues. That's not his fault. If anything, is frustrating that the same team issues remain despite playing a different mechanically superior mid laner. More indictment of the team as a whole than him. And I agree with that, actually. Like, we subbed Saligo in and we said, okay, what's going to happen when we have a more lane-focused player in here?
Right.
And we saw him hang in lane decently well. I think he's kind of doing worse as time goes on, but definitely at the start, he hung on nicely and nothing changed. Like, we had the same exact problems that we always have. And that, I think, speaks to the severity of the other things. We made one move and it didn't really do anything. So I'm thinking that with 2 games left for this split, it would be a massive wasted opportunity if we didn't do something else on the player side. And I think it's got to be Fragas. And I know that there has been talk about Fragas doesn't really seem LCS ready and he seems too aggressive and he just maybe not ready or whatever. Well, the split is lost at this point and we're trying to diagnose what's going wrong with the team. I really think that jungle is a position that we should be looking at really carefully because Anna has just not worked out this split. He looked really, really, really promising at the end of last year. Something broke. And I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's just philosophically between the other members of the team or whatever, but he just does not look good anymore. Just doesn't really even seem serviceable in a lot of situations. And it's gotten worse over time. So look, we changed out the mid, okay? And we saw basically the same problems. Let's change out the jungler. I think we need to know what moves we need to make in the off season. Through the Saligo substitution, we learned that, hey, it's not really mid lane right now in terms of what style of mid lane is being played. So if Fragas isn't the guy that you want on the team going forward, well, then you still can learn something about what the play style is like. So, okay, what is Fragas? He's a super aggressive jungler who takes a lot of risks to make big plays, and it works out sometimes for him and it doesn't work out other times. So it's basically the opposite of Anda, right? Who's someone who's been very calculated and very measured with the things that he does. We don't see him taking a lot of risks very often. We don't see him being super aggressive. So at least even if Fragas isn't the guy, at least plug that play style in and then see if you can get someone who matches it if it's successful. That's how I'm thinking of the rest of it.
No, yeah. I think I'm coming around to that idea. And I get what you're saying, right? Which is, look, we may have been, maybe we're playing Saligo not because we think he's going to be the one who actually wins us games, but because it gives us a better idea of what having different kinds of players in this mix of squad looks like and how that impacts the team. The thing that I always kind of have in my mind and that I kind of worry about is, let's say that we put Fragas in and then he can't hang or doesn't have great games. Do we then kind of write off that whole strategy or that play style? And it's just it's such an unsatisfying way to try and play different strategies.
Would you prefer to not do anything? Would you prefer to play the exact same thing this week though, and not have a chance at learning anything?
No, definitely not. It's one of those where it's if what we're doing is trying to find the next thing that works for us, it's hard to say that, at that point we'll have 2/5 of an academy squad playing LCS, so how much can you really get out of that from a data perspective? I mean, I think if we look better, then that's good. That's something we can hold on to, but I don't know. It feels like at a certain point you change so much that I don't know what to go with. But I think I'm with you. We have nothing to lose. There's no reason to not play Fragas other than just I don't know that it's going to solve the problems in the way that people are hoping it might,
Yeah. Well, gosh, I just keep thinking about how much of a wasted opportunity it would feel like if we didn't make a change.
No, I agree. I think we should.
There's something to be said about like, okay, a player isn't ready and you don't want to ruin that player or whatever. But man, something's got to be done. And I think like, from the outside looking in, like, okay, when you say that, what you're really saying is this player like might have a mental issue. If he goes in and like doesn't play well and feels defeated, then he might not be as good going forward. Okay, well, that matters in a couple ways, right? That matters for your own team, and that matters for that player as like an asset that can be dealt, right? Yeah. Right. From the outside looking in, everybody's like, well, Hunter T is like a dumpster fire right now, so you know what I mean? Like, you can't really blame anybody for what's going on, like in terms of like, well, we didn't get a good look at what he is because he was like playing in that situation. So I don't think you're burning Fragas by putting him in. I really don't. And give him the same talk that Saligo got from Nade Shot.
Yeah, it's no stakes. There's nothing to lose. The thing I think that we stand to lose is just, I guess, process of elimination. We have to try to figure out, keep moving pieces in, moving pieces out, and seeing what makes us better.
Yeah.
And it's probably got to be an incremental thing, right?
Right. And so
like
that
even just a little bit better.
Right. And that actually we should address the Aphro thing too, because I'm of the opinion that right now Aphro is just not what he used to be, and he's like cooked right now. Like something drastic needs to happen during the off season for him to reset if he's going to be viable going forward, right? So a lot of people are saying, well, do we sub in Stunt, who's had some LCS experience and is the most experienced of our academy team? But I'm telling you, man, like that's where I feel differently because it's a duo lane. And I made that point last week about how I don't want to see that substitution because it's not like Bang has any time to play with this guy. And so in that case, I think, it could go so badly that it's impossible to even learn anything.
Right.
Just because there's no synergy there. So if you want to do that, you have to have these guys like duoing together during the off season and work up to that point. Yeah. So I don't want to see an Aphro substitution right now.
Just because we don't stand to gain much from doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Potentially just waste time. Yeah, I think I'm at the point where I feel pretty confident that's, unless, like you said, something drastic changes, I don't think Aphro is a long-term spot for us. Like, I don't think that is going to be, like, I don't even know about summer. Like, if I were making the moves here, I'd probably be looking for anybody who could come in and play support for us. Just because I'm not seeing Aphro being that person.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
It sucks and it's shocking. Every time we make that point, it's like, man, never pictured saying that.
Yeah. So I think we got to move Anda. I think we got to move Aphro, and I think Fragas is a clear move there.
I don't know if it's a long-term move, but it's
like a clear thing to try. It's a clear week 9 trial.
Yeah. I did before. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of potential roster things in a second, but I did want to make one more point because. I listen to the dive every week, and I've heard this come up a couple times, and I think it may have even come up on Hotline League too, where a lot of people were talking about communication between the team, specifically with Bang and Someday, and saying like, well, like they, the Koreans probably can't speak English enough to like really like have a good communication with the team on the Rift and stuff. And I just want to say like, I don't think that is the case at all. Bang's English is fine. Yeah. And surely, it's not 100% natural, and he's not, I wouldn't say he's fluent, but he's conversational and knows enough to be able to communicate what he's doing on the Rift.
Right.
I don't think it's that at all. So I do not accept that excuse in the least bit for anything that's happening. And I think that's a short-sighted take on what you could fix.
I think you could look at Ryu too, right? And I haven't seen their test scores side by side, but I would guess that Ryu's English usage is comparable in a lot of ways to both Someday and Bang. So I think it's more about how you use your voice. It's less about what you can say. And I think Ryu's a great example of that, in that, it doesn't matter if you can't, write a story in English for your high school essay exam quiz. It's more just like, can you get a point across in a game where every second counts and you need to be directing traffic? And I think right now we don't have anybody on the team who can do that, English or otherwise.
Yeah. One other just minor point, going back to the academy thing. Football 2008 in Twitch chat said, isn't academy busy with playoffs this week? So that's a good point, because like if you're subbing someone in, you're disrupting the playoff structure or whatever. But like honestly, hey, guess what? That's academy, and this is LCS. You know what I mean? Like one of these things is like the training ground, and the other is the thing that the org is really, doing.
Yeah, it is a good point though. I mean,
yeah, I don't want to dismiss that point, but I'm just saying like one of these things is obviously more important than the other.
And my guess is Fragas would understand although it does kind of feel like, I mean, this is a throwaway weekend, I
don't know, but why wouldn't you want a chance at least to play in the LCS?
Yeah, you'd want a chance, right? Because like if you're Fragas, you could go in there and pop off. That would be fantastic for you. That would be the best possible thing for you. So I'm sure that he would say, you got good luck at Worlds, guys.
Right. Let's talk about the next question we had on our rundown, which was what major weaknesses on display at every position but top. What do we do from a roster perspective for summer? And I think I know where you stand on that. Are you still with your take on a certain jungler that we could bring in?
Boy, I tell you what, that take hasn't gotten any less needed. I was hoping that would not be the case, but yeah, we got to get a jungler in here. We got to get a jungler in here who just at least somebody who, like I was saying earlier, if we're gonna lose, let's just go down swinging. Like I would be happy to get a split where we just play a lot and take chances and risks. And so yeah, I think I'm with JSKLB Wit. We want Dardoch, and I'm ready. I'm ready. Thank you for the cue there. Bring him on. Bring him on. Like you said, it's a dumpster fire. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, maybe he is napalm, but it's already on fire. Just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously hoping that some of those toxicity rumors are unfounded, or that he's grown out of them at this point. Man, it's just really, really hard. I don't know who else is really out there.
Yeah.
I don't know what like Blabber's doing. Yeah, I was gonna say, but
which he's got a similar play style, I'd say. I'd say he's maybe a little bit more like all in than Dardoch is even.
Yeah. Well, certainly there should be something done, I think. In that area.
I don't know if you have. Let me ask you this: are there pieces you think we should build around?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely someday. Someday is absolutely still carrying his weight. He is someone you can just put up in top lane and count on to, win and do his thing, and often get off to pretty big early leads.
Yep.
There is no doubt in my mind that he's the most important piece to build around.
Yep.
I still think, even though I did have some criticisms for Bang, I still think Bang's a piece that we try and keep in place for right now. I understand that that's an import slot, and that, something like an import mid would be incredibly valuable to us probably.
Yeah.
But it's just not an opportunity that you get very often to have a player of that caliber on your team.
Right.
And I'm not convinced that he's like whatever issues that we've seen on his end can't be fixed with other things. I think like the other needs on the team are just way more pressing, and I would also not advocate like replacing 4 players on one team.
Yeah.
That just seems kind of crazy to me. And I may have made that point, but it's like, I think I said this when we were on League Leaders doing the Red Rivalry show with Clutch Gaming, where I was saying like, if it's poker and someone says I'll take 4, it's like, nah, go all in. You know what I mean? So that's kind of
deal them off the top.
Yeah.
Right to me.
Yeah, it just
like it.
I just think, yeah, it's someday and Bang are pieces to build around. I think everybody else is, I mean, you might need to just make a move. You might need to get rid of Aphro and bring in somebody else. You might need to do that for Saligo or Huhi.
How about this?
Definitely for Jungle. What's up?
Bang for Crown and Dardoch.
You're suggesting that as a trade. So, I mean, first of all, Optic is better than us right now. So
true.
They were giving up 2 players just to get that one. You're leaving 2 pretty big gaps. I guess it's only 1 player gap, actually, technically speaking.
So, yeah, it's Academy.
No, it ain't happening.
Well, happen or not.
I get what you're saying though. It's like, what's the limit for Bang?
Like, what would you give up to give up one of your building blocks?
Yeah, it would have to be strong. But I think everything's on the table, man. If I'm under Thieves, I'm listening to all possibilities. So
yeah,
that's kind of crazy to think about, but it's kind of the truth. Question in chat: why did Cody and Rikara perform better than Bang has? From the Bonzi again. I think that is, it's like the whole team situation is what's influencing a lot of that. And I don't think it's Bang like totally just messing up or whatever, but like Cody Sun, for example, played Funnel for a while. Was able to look really, really good for a while. I'm not convinced that Rikara has performed better than Bang has. So I would kind of write off that portion of it. But and if you're following the breadcrumbs that have been left about those 2 situations, it's hard to say anything about, whether or not having Bang there is better than having Cody Sun or Rikara. So, and not to forget mentioning that Cody Sun is on the worst Academy team. He's in the Academy slot for the worst Academy team right now. So
yeah,
and Rikara doesn't have a job. So
yeah, we've had kind of bad luck at head carry. Turns out, I do think it's I think a lot of Bang's misfortune is just a product of the environment, and I think all of the things we've talked about him are valid. But I don't think, I mean, anybody, I think everybody on the team has looked worse than they did last year, even the same people. So it's kind of one of those where I think if all the different things that have gone on, like I could very well see a scenario where we have the exact same roster, switch Ryu for Huhi, and everybody on the team looks bad, right? and I don't think that's one player's fault. I just think that's a team mix problem. So yeah, Bang obviously doesn't look as good as Cody did when we went to spring finals last year, or when Rikara did when we went to Worlds, but I'm not putting that up to him as a player. I think it's the team.
It's funny. I think Huhi's in a weird spot actually, because he got subbed out, and like we mentioned, Saligo did well in lane. I think he did better than expected, but we saw no material change in the performance of the team playing around that style. And it doesn't seem like anybody's like, okay, so put Huhi back in. And it kind of seems like a foregone conclusion that Saligo is the guy moving forward, which I'm not sure that's actually the case. I think Huhi like...
see a switch again?
What'd you say?
You think we could see a switch again?
Not for next week,
yeah.
But who knows what's going to happen in the off season. I think we're looking at mid and jungle probably the most out of anything. Yeah. But there was a Ravens Nation 19 in Twitch chat says, I think we trade Fakegod for Golden Glue. So that's an interesting one too. Golden Glue is another trade that we brought up on this show 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think actually I was the one to bring it up. I mean, I'm not sure how much of a difference that's going to make. Golden Glue is somebody who, he's had an up and down history, and it seems like he's trending a little bit better now. But here's the thing with Fakegod. It's like Fakegod is kind of in the similar situation as Levi, where we've got an academy asset that has like crazy potential, and Levi, more proven quantity than Fakegod is, but all the feedback, all the word on Fakegod is that this dude can play, and he's pretty insane. But he's sitting behind Someday, who, in my opinion, is still the best top laner in NA. Yeah. So he's in a position where he's kind of just not usable on the LCS stage, just circumstantially. So you do have to think about looking at him as a trade asset too.
I think that's right. I think he could be a really strong trade asset, actually. I could almost see that being like a 1-for-1 with Dardoch, because like you said, Optic they're challenging for playoffs. They're still in the conversation. Meteos is playing for them, and I haven't been watching the games that closely, but I think he's playing well enough. So that's an interesting thought, and I'm going to say one that we should think long and hard about. Just because if we keep Someday around, then I think he's on. Did we get him to a 2-year or 1?
He's definitely 2 minimum. I thought I saw someone had signed a 3-year with us, actually. But I'll see if I can maybe pull up the answer to that while you
So that's kind of the thing. It's like, if we have Someday for 2 years, it feels like Fakegod's not going to play for a long time, which,
Because Someday does not show signs of slowing down.
No, he's still just as good as he has been. They're saying 2 years in chat.
Okay. Yeah, I was just getting to pull it up here.
Thanks, Whit.
Yeah, thanks, Whit. Always being on top of it. We appreciate you guys.
Yep.
Share some real ones.
So yeah, if we have Someday for another 3 splits at least, then and Fakegod is his value is high in the marketplace. Gosh, I think you gotta do it. You gotta use that to make a move. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna sit for another 3 splits, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he's not taking Someday's spot unless we get like the same Aphro spring 18 to 19 transition, which please don't do that. Then I think he stays right where he's at.
Yeah. Really funny in YouTube chat. One of the comments was Someday mid. Imagine it. And it said, try anything was the reply.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure we're in. I'm not sure that's gonna be a thing. But man, this is just a huge puzzle to solve. But I would hope that the team uses Fragas next week to kind of do some more diagnosing so that we know what our plan is in the off season. But I just don't think it's gonna happen.
So let's say that Fragas comes in and plays comparably to Siligo. Like, doesn't fix the problem. We don't win the games, but there are positive things we see, and we play better. Where do you go from there?
Wait, so say the first part again. I'm sorry.
Fragas plays next week.
Yeah.
And we get a similar, change in overall outcome as we've seen with Hui and Siligo.
So nothing really changes in terms of outcome.
Right. Like the team isn't fixed, but there's enough positive there that people are saying doesn't seem like this is a failure.
I mean, if you do that, I think keep Fragas.
Keep him playing.
At least keep him on the team,
Yeah.
See what happens in the off season. But it's like I think jungle is going really poorly for us right now. So if we see anything that's a net positive, then hold on to it for right now.
Right.
Jeez, man, I am I just come out of these conversations feeling like I'm such an idiot and I don't know what to do. I just want this team to win again,
Well, if it's any solace to you, Cole, I think that there are at least a few people who've tried many different things with this roster and also haven't figured it out. Not cracked the code yet. We're not the only two. And I think anybody who would tell you that they've got the easy fix, be warned. It's snake oil. There is no easy fix here, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, there was an easy break it, and we did that in the off season accidentally. So
who would have ever guessed
that
that's what would break this team? Like, what on earth?
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, can we get Ryu back on a player contract?
So I just was looking at the LCS contract database, and it has him listed as a mid laner on contract. So, I mean, that's an import slot. So
It is.
So
It
make what you will of that. That's another thing. Like, when does everybody become domestic? Like, that's
how many more years do we have to wait with this roster for them to?
Oh gosh, I don't want to think about that. I just want to win sooner.
That domestic flip always seems short when it's someone else's team you're talking about. When it's your own team, it's like, whoa,
right.
3 years.
Yeah. Well, let's. I mean, look, things are dire right now. We're going to have one more week to watch this iteration of the team. Like I said, I hope that they make a change, but I'm not optimistic that that actually will happen. It just seems like there's hesitancy around Fragas, so we'll ride this out. We'll see if Saligo makes any progress, and then we'll just prepare for the offseason. And in the meantime, we'll be cheering on the Academy boys and hoping that they rip playoffs to pieces and are able to do some amazing things there for us.
You know they will. I really just hope, my hope at this moment in time is that we have some stuff to talk about next week. Like, I really just don't want to watch 2 more of the games that we saw this weekend. Those are so hard to watch, man. Like,
yeah,
let's just take some chances. Get Fragas in there. Let's see.
Yeah.
Get Ryu on stage. Ryu strategic coach. Get out there. You know,
shake things up, baby.
Just make it happen.
Probably can play. We'll see. Just have him play. And speaking of next week, so that's Saturday we have CLG, and then on Sunday we have Optic. So not games that are so far out of reach for us on paper, but man, it just feels like the team has already kind of phoned it in. So who knows what we're going to get.
These are both teams fighting for playoffs. So if anything, we can just spoil their playoff hopes. And
let's play spoilers. Let's be chaos.
Play spoilers. If we're going hard for a trade for Dardoch, maybe we think about Sunday. Just a little bit.
There you go. All right. Well, let's see if we see any indications of that. But I think that will be it for the show this week.
I think so.
We're gonna sign off to go cry, and then maybe tomorrow morning we'll feel like getting back on the Discord or something and talking these things out. So we'd love to keep hearing from everybody. We had a super active chat today, and that was really cool. And so we hope to see you guys back next week. Please send me anything you want on Twitter. Like, I love Twitter. I love talking about this stuff. So let's go back and forth, bang these ideas around, and see who's right in the end. See what the moves are that the team actually makes.
Yeah, and that's something to look forward to. Get some action.
Yeah, there you go. And in the meantime, don't lose your fandom. Like, this org is awesome, and I'm going to keep supporting even when we're bad. I've got a lot of experience doing that, being fans of the professional teams that I am a fan of in traditional sports. So I ain't phased. I've still got the jersey on. I'm still wearing the colors.
I think it does say something that we've got. I mean, people are still showing up. People still want to talk about this stuff. The fans aren't quitting. We're still here. And this just goes to show you, like, easy to be a 100 Thieves fan last year when we were showing up to Worlds, making waves. Harder when we're in 10th.
Yep.
But I think the fact that we are seeing so much from the community just around ideas and thoughts and hopes and questions, like, that's what we need. And we need people to not get toxic and start flaming people, because that's not going to help. So I appreciate everybody tonight, and I'm seeing more broadly.
We love you guys. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate the subs that we have, and everything that you guys do to help us spread the word about the show so that everybody can join us in talking 100 Thieves. Let's finish it up. We'll be doing some play streams this week, one or two probably. That's been a lot of fun. So come make fun of us and tell us how bad we are at the actual game.
Yeah.
And we can also just we can do more of this. We can talk about takes while we play and stuff. We're happy to do that too. So
we're not busy while we're playing. We're not trying that hard.
No, we're not trying. So
anyway, super hard.
We'll see you guys. Go Academy team. Have a great week, and miss you already. Bye.
See you.